Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Hemmings Hot Rod BBQ podcast. My name is Mike Musso, and this week we have a very special guest by the name of Larry Chen. Now, for those who don't know Larry, all you have to do is type his name into Google, and he's going to come up as probably one of the greatest automotive photographers of this century. I mean, that's a big statement, and I like making big statements for good people, and Larry is one of those people. His photographs have been seen literally all over the world. He has a YouTube channel on the Hoonigan Network called Autofocus, but Larry has a way of capturing an automobile that makes you think. He sees these vehicles as action, as art, as subject matter that kind of ignites the soul. And so when you see a Larry Chen photo, you kind of know it, which is pretty amazing. Before we get to Larry, though, we do what we always do on the barbecue, is that we pull a car from our Hemmings classifieds, of which there are 25 to 30,000 classifieds online, that kind of, well, in this case, it's a car that I would love to have Larry photograph because it's one of my all-time favorite cars. This week, it's a 1987 Aston Martin's Vantage X-Pack. Now, Aston Martin in the late 80s, the Vantage was a hot rod. It was a muscle car. Think of it as the 80s version of a 1968 through 1970 Dodge Charger. Big, muscular coupe, manual transmission, inset fog lights in the ground. I mean, it's just plain sexy. If I could afford one, I would spend almost $500,000 on this car because I feel that honestly, I've never driven one. I don't know how good they are. They're probably wrought with problems. I don't care because I would park it and I would stare at it and I would drool over it. It is a dream car. And Larry, if you ever get the chance to photograph one, please do and send me the photos because this is amazing. So with that being said, take a look at this car online. Come back in about 4 or 5 seconds because we'll be right back with Larry Chen. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Hot Rod BBQ podcast. As mentioned, we have Larry Chen, who is arguably one of the best automotive photographers on the entire planet. I have followed his career from the beginning up until now, and all I can say is, Larry, welcome. And I'm still blown away by everything that you do, man. Just simply unbelievable.
Well, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. We've had a chance to cross paths a couple times. Which every time was a lot of fun. I think the last time, we were probably stuck in a sandstorm and just getting our eyes just getting sandblasted nonstop on El Mirage Lake Bed with our good buddy Matt Farah. That was a lot of fun, and some of the photos from that shoot still to this day, like I look back on it, I'm like, oh, I can't believe we did that.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, as an automotive photographer, I mean, you work in some crazy environments. And we're going to talk about that. But before we do, I wanted to get into, because, and I'm sure you get, hundreds of emails a year about how you get into automotive photography. And I mean, there are so many questions and whatnot. And I know, kind of, as someone who was a journalist and then got into video, taking the right picture is instrumental to everything that we do in this hobby, right? Whether it's writing an article or shooting video or whatever the case is. So I'm really curious, how did you get into this? How did you start in this field?
It's kind of crazy. You're so right about the emails, but it's not emails anymore. It's actually DMs. I get
DMs, yeah.
So many DMs all the time, every day, including one that I got this morning that really, it kind of got me thinking. I think it went something like, hey, how do you actually make a living? Like they basically just can't even fathom or understand that you could take pictures of cars and make a living from it. Mm-hmm. Which, I mean, when I was young, I think is probably the same thing. I was thinking like, yeah, I would pay somebody to take pictures of cars.
Right.
And essentially that's what I did for many, many years. Basically, I just made money another way and then used that money to pay my way for my equipment, for travel, for everything, just to be able to create these pictures, because it was a hobby. It was a very expensive hobby, and it was a very time-consuming hobby. luckily I was able to make my hobby my work, my job, and now 100% my life.
Right.
What was the question?
So I know everybody's tired. Just for those,
Yeah,
Larry's a bit tired. He just got back from King of the Hammers out
yeah,
in the desert, which we're going to touch on a little later. And
yeah.
that has a tendency to just wipe everyone out who's at that
Oh yeah.
event. But
Yeah, and then for example with King of the Hammers, I was there 13 days, and I never thought I would get to this point. 10 years ago, I went to this event and I tent camped, if you can imagine that.
mm-hmm.
That's actually very dangerous.
Oh
You could
yeah.
get run over anytime. And that year it snowed. There was a sandstorm. But you know what? At that time, I was a lot younger and I was a lot hungrier to make these photos. So I brought my laptop, I brought my cameras, and I brought even a generator so I could still charge and I could edit photos in my tent at night. Could you just, if you could just imagine that? And I even asked my guys, my team this year that I brought, I asked them, hey, would you be down to do that? And also not shower for 5 days and shoot 8-hour days or more. They're like, we can't even imagine that. Now we're staying at a comfy Airbnb. But with that said, I put in the time, right? I put in,
Yeah.
this is my 10th year, and then now finally it's starting to pay off. For example, the reason why we're there 13 days is because we did a lot of work with Ford with their Bronco program. So we
Mm-hmm.
went early, we shot a bunch of things with the Bronco race team. And that, I guess, kind of answers the question for that DM this morning. I remember exactly. I answered it. I was like, I don't know if you're gonna like this answer, my guy, because
Mm-hmm.
there's no short way to get into this. This is my 16th year shooting
Yeah.
professionally, and the way that we make a living is we're able to do this work with these OEM manufacturers. You've been in the
Mm-hmm.
editorial scene for so long. There's pretty much no money at all in editorial. Like, good luck in this day and age making money from editorial.
Right.
For us, I'm so lucky to be able to work with Ford. Toyota is my biggest client without a doubt. Recently we've been doing a lot of stuff with Cadillac. We've done
Mm-hmm.
stuff with Dodge. Pretty much most of the big OEM players, even Hyundai. Nissan was a big one for me in 2020. I had a chance to be the first person to shoot the 400Z, which is
Unbelievable. I saw that on IG.
oh my God, like
Yeah.
that is like it's a dream come true, really. And it happened in the weirdest way. I think part of it is that everyone likes to make fun of me about how much I like to talk about my 240Z and how passionate I am about my own project car.
But that's great. Why wouldn't you be?
Yeah, and then because it's that, and it's even my profile picture on my Instagram, right? That's like me. That's my car. My
Yeah.
car is me. I bought it on my 21st birthday and I've had it since. And it's like people know me about that with that car. So then Nissan kind of realized that for whatever reason, I think they've kind of had a like maybe a shift change with
Mm-hmm.
all of the newer people coming into the company.
Sure.
And they realized that if it was somebody like myself to photograph it, it would just be different versus like a normal commercial photographer. Not to, not to discredit any of the other commercial photographers, but yeah, I guess it's just the culture aspect of it. That's what kind of how we're tackling something like this.
Well, I think when you have a passion about stuff, and I think everybody who's in the automotive space, they're known for a certain genre or a certain look and feel, right? I know for me, people always associate me with my 68 Charger or my Daytona because
Mhm.
I've owned those cars for almost 20 years, right? So before I ever got into this business, I was driving around in a Dodge muscle car. Now, that doesn't mean we don't have other interests. I mean, I have, a Jeep and a BMW, and I've had Porsches in the past and stuff like that. But as something as important as the Z cars, right, that have been a staple in the sports car community for almost 50 years now. The fact that that is your first love, that's the car that you have such a connection with. Nissan would have been out of their mind, literally, from a media perspective and a social perspective, if they didn't have you shoot that car. right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean,
So
I definitely appreciate it on all fronts. You know, from the community side, how supportive everyone was when they actually saw the photos, and also from the Nissan side. After that, we even had a chance to shoot the new Bayside Blue R35 for Nissan, which, you know, the Bayside Blue R34, I mean R35, they basically took the color from the R34. You know, that's the iconic color
yep.
on the R34 Skyline. They re-released that color on the R35, and we were able to shoot the first set of images of that too. So going forward, I think I'm gonna probably try to do a lot more stuff with Nissan, even though Toyota is our biggest client, and we do the most stuff with them, and we absolutely love working with them. You know, I have I have four Toyotas myself, and that's what I
Yeah.
drive every single day. But you know, that's the point is, I think it's the same thing with what you just mentioned. You know, you have a little bit of everything and you have no alliance really.
Right.
You have the thing that you're known for, but you are willing and able to work with any other company.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think that's, that I think that's a part that a lot of people who are just starting out in this business don't understand, right? Yeah, you might gravitate to something, but if you don't shape yourself, and this has to do with either journalism or photography or video or broadcasting, if you don't shape yourself as a well-rounded individual that can speak to all the different genres, you're really kind of doing yourself a disservice, right?
Yeah.
Um, you know, when with the stuff that you shoot, I mean, yes, you do kind of the OEM stuff, but then, we'll talk a little bit about King of the Hammers. Now, for those that don't know, King of the Hammers is one of the coolest off-road events in the world. I mean, without question. It takes place in Southern California, literally in the middle of the desert. They set up this place called Hammertown, and it's a weekend that runs everything from like Pro 4 trophy trucks, rock crawlers. I mean, kind of you name it, right? The off-road vehicle is out there.
Yeah, I think the best way to describe it is that 1 week out of the year, it's the largest city between LA and Vegas, or like that.
Hmm.
It's like the largest city, um, SoCal, SoCal in general, and then between SoCal and Vegas, it's like this city that's just created out of nothing.
No,
The
yeah.
rest of the year, when you go there, and I've been there many, many, many times outside of Hammers, and it's desolate. It's empty. There's nobody
Yeah, it's
there.
nothing.
Maybe, yeah, maybe there's a couple motorhomes, but for just that, this week, this period of time, in my case, it was 13 days. It's just this legitimate city with everything. This year, the guys, Dave Cole and the gang from Ultra 4, they just created this thing at all odds. And, you know, we know how hard it is, especially now, for events to happen. You know, even the big players, you got NASCAR, IndyCar, all those guys are, I wouldn't say they're struggling, but it's been tough, right?
Oh yeah.
This event was the first event that I've been to since the shutdown that I felt, man, things are getting back to normal.
That's great.
It was really good. It gave me so much hope, seriously. So the last event for me, that was normal. I was in Mexico at WRC. I was following Ken Block
Hmm.
in Guanajuato, and mid-event was when the shutdown happened. Mid-event was
Jesus.
when FD Long Beach Grand Prix,
Yep.
pretty much everything got announced that day, and then they had to shorten the race by 1 day, or rally. They had to shorten the rally by 1 day, and since then, I just thought to myself, like, it was abysmal. You know, it just didn't look good. It just didn't.
Right.
It wasn't. It was a thing where I just didn't feel like, oh man, it's going to take forever for it to get back to normal.
Right.
And less than a year, you know, going to King of the Hammers this time, uh, the protocols that they had and just everything that they were able to pull off just blew my mind. And of course, you know, granted, it's an outdoor event,
Sure.
and it's you're not really standing next to people, so I
Right.
guess it was the perfect venue for that. And
Hmm.
everybody has their own space in their RV. It's I can't imagine. I don't even know how many RVs it is. It's a sea of RVs, and it's just so crazy that they were able to pull it off. And I was very, very happy to be a part of it.
So let's talk about now, because when you started out, right, you're going on just, you said about 16 years. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you ever, first off, do you remember what your first automotive gig was? The first time that somebody said, "Can you shoot a car?" Do you remember what that was?
It's tough because I think it was like intermixed, right? So for a long time, I was just paying my way. I was going to Japan, I was going to Europe, I was just doing whatever I can to get into these events. I was getting with smaller publications and
Hmm.
kind of saying, hey, I'll trade for photos if you could get me in, or
Hmm.
whatever. There was always a way for me to get the press pass somehow, and then I would either mostly pay my way and they would pay part of it, or they would not pay at all and I would just pay all my way just to get there. And I was able to just, I guess, start shooting for these smaller publications just for pennies, really. And then
So
all
that
of a
this
sudden,
was true passion then. So you basically just said, "The hell with this. I know I'm not going to make money. I'm doing this anyway. Pay me what you can just to you just show my work." Right?
yeah, yeah. And I had my own website, and I really prided myself in being able to provide these photos for people. Uh, because when I was just getting into cars and I first got my driver's license, or even before that, I had a passion for cars, but I couldn't even find any material online that that I could consume, that I could use
Mm.
as a desktop wallpaper, that I could print out and put on my wall. I wasn't able to find that, so I figured, hey, since I'm looking for that, maybe that's something I need to create for the public. And I did that. I was very happy to be able to provide these photos that I shot at very high resolution for the time, higher
Okay.
than I feel like the monitors were able to handle back then, which I think allowed me to kind of maybe turn some heads. Some people are like, oh, this guy's the first thing that most people said to me back then
Yeah.
was, wow, your photos are so clear. And I'm like thinking, why is it that? It's not that it's any better or worse. It's just because I'm displaying them at a higher resolution for people to
Hmm.
have for personal use. And because they kind of took notice that way, they figured, hey, maybe he can do some work for us.
Hmm.
And then I wouldn't say it snowballed. It just was a grind, little bit by little bit by little bit by little bit, and then eventually it got to the point where EA/Speed Hunters took notice, and then they actually
Yep.
hired me on board full time to shoot editorial for them. And I guess that was kind of one of my bigger breaks. But at the same time, it's just editorial. How much could you really, really make in terms of making a living on editorial? So
Right.
I at the same time really pushed hard to do commercial stuff, and I
Okay.
guess it's gotten to me, or it's just gotten me to this point.
So, all right. So now we're 16 years down the line, right? When we first started, and I've been doing this probably about 12 years, 13 years now. So, the websites that were out there back in the day, I know my first gig was with Cardomate a million years ago.
Yeah.
And
So the
that,
yeah.
that and we have a mutual friend, Rob, and Rob had offered me this my first writing gig. He's like, "Do you write?" And I'm like, "I can." He's like, "Write for this website that I'm the editor of." And I was like, "All right, cool." That's how I started, which was,
Yeah. So Cardomain was so helpful early on in my career. They're the reason why I went to SEMA. They're the reason why I was able to go to so many events, Tokyo Auto Salon, and also they're the reason why I was able to experience so many different types of car culture.
yeah.
Like I went to the truck shows, I went to the lowrider shows, I went to Grand National Roadster Show, I went to all the shows in my area that I wouldn't go to otherwise. And also, I would just pitch them stories about, hey, let me just go to the show, and then all
Hmm.
essentially it at the time it was so crazy. It was like $1 for one photo.
Oh,
if
it
you
was
can
nuts
imagine
what
that.
they paid. It
Yeah.
paid nothing.
But it was still good.
Yeah.
For me, it was really, really good. And there was it worked out to basically $400 for a set of photos, which is 400 photos. But that didn't include travel. That didn't include,
Right.
hotel, gas, food,
Sure.
everything. So if you can imagine that doing a whole event on $400, now it's unspeakable. Now it costs $400 just for a flight to get to somewhere, or
Yeah.
more.
Yeah.
But back then I was like, oh my God, I couldn't believe it. I can't believe I have this thing with Car Domain now that I can actually make money to do what I
Yeah.
love to do. And yeah, it was really amazing. And I definitely appreciate that early stage of I wouldn't say the internet, but it was like car websites,
Yeah.
right? It
Sure.
was before social, and it's
It was
essentially it
before
was a social media.
Instagram.
Yeah, it was like Street Fire, to get
That's right.
your to get your burnout clips. Yeah,
That's right. That's right.
yeah,
So
and
do you think now, like, we have, okay, so we've got, so that, I mean, that was a million years ago, and Car Domain unfortunately isn't even around anymore, and if it is, I'm not sure what state it's in. Um, but we have Instagram, we have Facebook, we have all these hosting services now where people can just take as many photos and post whatever they want up. Are you finding that now, as kind of the veteran in here that has created this really kind of high end genre for, I mean, there have always been wonderful automotive photographers. You've captured kind of like the action slash event slash the beautification of the automobile. And I think
mm,
that's a very rare thing when you're able to do all three of those. Are you finding that people that are coming to you and saying, "Listen, I want to get into this business," do they feel like, well, I've got an Instagram page and I've got 700 followers, so you should pay me for my stuff? Like, are you constantly having kind of this come to Jesus meeting with a lot of these younger people that want to get into this industry and be like, listen, guys, do what you're going to do, but it takes time. You don't just take 600 photos and all of a sudden you're that person.
mhm.
How does that conversation generally go?
Yeah. There's a couple of things that I think about when you mention that. Um, First of all, uh, you can't be discouraged right now. Maybe you won't believe me when I say this, but there's a need for content creators more than ever.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I can't tell you how many times we need help, or we need to farm out work because we're so busy with people needing content. Like, people, just the consumers and car enthusiasts in general are consuming more content than we can create. We just can't make these videos. We can't do these photo sets. We can't travel fast enough. We just don't have enough time, legitimately. And it is because of how big the appetite is for people. The moment they wake up, they're consuming. Before they're going to sleep, when they're at work, that's when they're
Yeah.
consuming the most.
Yeah.
And the people, when if I thought to myself, like, if I told myself, or my old self, that we would be coming out with 3 full-length episodes, 45 minutes to an hour
Yeah.
episodes of car content a week, I would think that's insane. That's impossible. That there's
Right.
no way. You need a full production company, all that. Now I feel like we've gotten it down to a science. I think we've done a pretty good job on Hoonigan Autofocus. We're coming on 2 years of that, which is crazy. 3 episodes a week for 2 years straight, and it's insane. That with that said, you have to just, you could be so talented, and I see photographers now on Instagram, on Facebook, on wherever, on these platforms. I see how talented they are. They're so good,
Mm-hmm.
but the problem is they just don't have the work ethic. You
Right.
just, you got to show up on time. You got to have consistent work. Forget about doing anything else if you really want to do this for your job. I I live and breathe this. This is all I do. This is my life now. I've done so much in terms of I've sacrificed so much to get to this point, and I feel like these kids a lot of these kids just don't understand that. They think that, hey, we're going to do this epic photo set and it's just going to put me on the map. No, you have to do that, day in, day out, week in, every single week, you have to do that kind of photo set. And a lot of these kids, they come up to me, they're like, hey, we got this magazine cover. I finally got this magazine cover. I made it. No, what about next month? What about the month after that?
Right.
It's sad to say, but like, I have to say, like, look, I've had 3 or 4 magazine covers this month, and it doesn't matter.
This month,
magazines
right.
are dead.
Right.
It's like you just have to keep being in front of people's eyes, and that's honestly another reason why I never turn down a podcast, never, because you just have to keep reminding people that, hey, I'm still here, I'm making content.
So you earlier on you mentioned autofocus, right? And that's, for those that don't know, that's on the Hoonigan, affiliated with Hoonigan Network, right? And that's basically Larry Chen's adventures in photography, right?
Exactly.
And I think that's so important because I said, like you said, what comes after that first magazine cover? What comes after that next article? I mean, I've written 4,500 articles or more over the course of my career.
There you go.
Right. I've shot, 100 and I don't know how many videos with 70 million views. And everybody's like, well, that's amazing. It's like, it is, but it doesn't stop. It's like anything else. Like, if you don't wake up and say, what's my next job? What's my next gig? What's my next this? If you take that one day off, there's 10, 12, 15, 100 other people that are waiting to snag that from you.
Yeah.
So,
just to give you a kind of like an insight, the really big YouTube names right now, especially like the enthusiasts, I guess the people that are taking the lead in terms of
sure.
The car enthusiast YouTubes, like Adam LZ, of course, is the biggest, right? Cletus, you got TJ Hunt, those guys.
Yep.
They work so hard. Like, I cannot believe how hard Adam works. And people watch the videos and they think he's just having fun. And they watch our videos and they think we're having fun all the time. They don't understand a fraction of what we have to do. Adam, I've watched him edit full videos just on his cell phone. Like, we're coming back from like a press trip and we're in the bus having a good time, chatting, whatever, hanging out, everyone's relaxing, and I look over at Adam and he's legitimately cutting his video for that day on his phone on the tiniest screen, and it's bumpy and whatever, and he's able to do it, and he's going to publish it, and it's going to get whatever, 1 million views, 2 million views.
Right. Sure.
It's just that dedication, instead of just taking a breather, is just pushing super hard. And those guys really, and the people that I work with, my peers, they inspire me so much to push harder.
And I think that's another part, right? If you surround yourself with people that aren't dedicated to the craft, well, then you're not going to be, right? And it goes back to that whole thing. If you want to be successful in this business, surround yourself with successful people, right? Have them constantly push you and motivate you and test you to do things that you've never done before. Because, when we watch these YouTube videos and when people watch them, yes, we have fun with cars because they're cars. It's our passion. We're unbelievably fortunate to be able to do stuff. But, and I tell this to everybody, we've earned that right. We have spent the thousands of hours over 20-year period pushing and pushing and pushing and failing. And I think that's another part that people don't understand. Like, with every success, there's 15 failures that precede it that people don't know about. So they just see the kind of the fun stuff that we do. They never see, like you said, after you've worked for 10 hours at King of the Hammers in the desert, you're filthy, you're dirty. Now you're in an RV or you're in a tent editing photos for the next 4 hours. And that, I mean, I remember my first King of the Hammers, I went down, I was so unprepared, and we shot for 3 days. I slept in an empty car trailer with, it was myself, Zach Clapman and I think, right?
Yeah.
So it was me, Zach, and Thaddeus. We slept in an empty car trailer with a propane heater with the door cracked open so we wouldn't die.
Oh my God.
Right? Because it got down to 22 degrees at night. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. That is, I'm not saying do that, but that shapes you as this is what it takes if you don't have the money. You spoke about paying your own way and doing all this stuff. And a lot of people just want to say, well, I drive this car and I know this person and I've done that. The people that, in my experience, you see the result, you don't hear the talk. And even
Mhm.
after that result is published and the accolades are given, right? There's such an, and this is the other part about the work that you've done, Larry. The the amount of hubris that you know, you're not one of these guys that comes out and says, "I'm the best." You just do. And so many people do the opposite. I am great.
Mm,
I am this. The egos that flow, you're just like, well, you can't even compare yourself to this other person because you haven't done anything yet, right? So that's
mhm,
why I mean,
mhm.
like the career that you've made for yourself is nothing short of spectacular. And I think that everybody that watches it and sees what you do um, should take a long, hard lesson because, as we know, it's not easy. And
No.
you know, with things like autofocus, I mean, you've been kind enough to be able to showcase kind of your exploits to the world. And I think the other point is when I say to the world, you've literally your career has taken you all over this planet,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's it is crazy to think, I've traveled to 50 countries now on someone else's dime.
That's
And
nuts.
it's been so weird since last year to not be able to travel to other countries, because
Yeah.
I think that's the most fun for me is to experience this other culture. And honestly, one of the things that I know yourself and myself and people that we work with, one of the things that we try our best to do is to keep this culture alive.
Yeah.
And I the reason why I show my craft and the reason why I'm not shy about kind of telling everyone how we do this stuff and showing me actually doing this stuff, it's because that's another way to enjoy these cars. You could drive them, you can wrench on them, there's so many things you can do to them. You can wash them, right, to enjoy them.
Hmm.
But photographing them is just one of the many ways to enjoy them. And hopefully, if I can convey my excitement and if I can kind of teach these viewers actually how to take better photos of these cars, then they can enjoy them in that way. They can take a piece of that car and they can just have it for themselves. I always say, you may never be able to own a McLaren F1, but if you're lucky enough to see one, then you can photograph it and then you can own that photo at least.
Yeah, and I think that's a fantastic point. I think I mean, years ago when I was a kid, it used to be if you saw something like a Ferrari, and this is back in, I'm totally dating myself now, but back in like the late 70s and the 80s, if you saw something like a 308 or a Testarossa or, a Countach for that matter, that was an event. You spoke about seeing that vehicle for months with your You remember I saw that Countach stack on 347 back in the day. That was, and you would get so, at least I would get so excited because we didn't have a phone, right? And so you would look at like maybe you'd see something in a magazine or something like that, but to see it in person, that was that was a moment. And I still remember those moments 40 plus years later, about when I saw these cars and how they impacted me, right? And so now by taking that photograph and we know a lot of the same people. Like I remember when Farah first got his Countach and I was like, and then I remember I pulled my car in his garage at his place next to his car and I was like, this is surreal to me,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
It's,
that's his
I mean, there
car.
you go. Yeah. I mean, and that's just it. So it is those moments. And I think that you've been able to, capture those poster moments because as kids, we all had the posters on the wall, right? I mean, I remember the poster that I had of the Lamborghini and it was for a Maxell cassette. Oh no, it was for Alpine. I'm sorry. And it said body by Lamborghini, speed by Alpine or something. It was sound by Alpine, body by Lamborghini. And it was just a side view of this image of this Lamborghini, this Countach. And it was forever burned into my memory.
Mhm.
And then you did the photo shots of Matt's car.
Yeah.
And it's just, I just applaud you for making that possible and
Mhm.
giving that younger generation that inspiration to say one day I want to be able to take a Larry Chen style photo. I mean, that's just cool in my opinion. Like,
Yeah, I definitely appreciate that. Um, I think we're just having fun, and in the end of the day, this is another thing that I say all the time. Like my photos, hopefully, are gonna live on when I'm long gone. I hope hopefully I've taken enough
I
to
think you
last.
have.
I think I think I have, and yeah, I mean, I shoot so much, and I'm so lucky that uh, the contacts that I've made, the friends that I've made over this period of time, I'm able to shoot that much. If I look at it, somebody asked me how many I shoot a year, and then I kind of
Okay.
averaged it out, and it's legitimately 750 to 1,000 per day, every single day, 365 days. And that's, today I'm not shooting any, but yesterday or the day before yesterday, I was at King of the Hammers, and in one day I shot 8,000 photos. So I shot enough for the next whatever, however many days, and then tomorrow I'm gonna go shoot Porsches. I'm probably gonna end up with 1,000 photos,
Right.
and yeah, it just so on and so forth. Um, it's just, and on top of that, forget about the numbers of photos that we're shooting. The thing that I'm really proud of is how many we're able to publish.
Yeah.
Um, like the photos that we shoot, for example, at King of the Hammers, Ford already published a bunch. We are able to shoot for a lot of the top tier teams like Vaughn Gittin Jr. and
Hmm.
Lauren Healy.
Sure.
They published so many already, and they have an archive for years to come. You know, and I guess that's the thing that I'm really, really prideful of, because a lot of people ask me like, "Oh man, yeah, you shot 8,000 photos, but how many are people actually going to see?" I tell them probably 10%,
Hmm.
but that's a lot. You
That's
know,
huge.
yeah,
I
that's a
mean, that's
lot.
huge.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
what's so just a couple more things because I know
Mhm,
you're running around like a maniac. So what do you have in your garage now? You have your Z,
mhm.
right? But what do you aside from that, what do you gravitate to? Like what style of car like makes you go, I need to see that up close. And there are aspects of it that really kind of make your eyes twinkle. Like what would that be?
My collection of cars, I feel like it's so much about what I grew up with, and also there's a utilitarian use for these vehicles. Like for example, I have a supercharged manual FJ Cruiser. That's what we use for off-road chase duty, and I only use that when we need to shoot off-road. That's like a Toyota that we use that's cool, that's fun, that's like a project
Hmm.
car, but also it's just for photographing off-road. um
Sure.
my daily driver is a LC200 Land Cruiser. Same thing, just production vehicle. We can use it to go places, and we actually, I
Hmm.
think I brought it to the shoot that we
You
were at.
did. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
that's
yeah,
right.
yeah. So then it's just no frills. I just don't want to look flashy, but it's gets anywhere. It goes anywhere, and it's reliable. On the project car side, I have a 996 turbo that I've been building for about 6 or 7 years. I have a bone stock, probably the stockest R32 GTR I've ever
I've seen
seen.
a stunning
Still,
car.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah, it still has the
Perfect.
airbox.
Hmm.
Passes smog. I actually just took it to
That's great.
California smog, which the guy was like, "What is this? I can't believe you have this. It's crazy." And he's like, "There's no way it's gonna pass smog," and it passed smog with flying colors.
That's great.
Um, I have the Toyota Supra, Mark V, new one
Yep.
that's pretty mildly tuned, which is just so crazy that technology has taken cars to this point where I can pull into VF Engineering, and they're like, "Give me 5 minutes." They plug in this
I,
thing, and I have 60 extra wheel horsepower, which
it's
is so crazy.
it's
This thing
amazing.
is, it's so fast. It's too fast. It's It's scary. I took it to This Versus That recently, which
I
is a
saw that.
hoonigan
I
show.
watched it. Oh yeah.
I took it and they let me do a bunch of passes on it, and I could go from 0 to 125 back down to 0 like so fast. I just can't believe how fast
Yeah.
that car is. It's scary. I have Toyota Corolla hatchback that we actually used as a camera car. I don't know if you saw that. That was my first SEMA car.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What else? I'm
I mean,
blanking. Sorry.
and you're doing all this, right?
hmm
Dealing with the cars, um, family, work,
Oh yeah.
everything. And so you just do. When was the last time you took a day off? And when I mean a day off, I mean like I'm not doing shit today. I'm not picking up a camera. I'm staying home. I'm sleeping in. I'm gonna have a nice afternoon
I,
and did not once look at a camera.
I think for me, it's really 2 times a year that I'm able to do that, and that's Thanksgiving and Christmas time. I think that's pretty much the only times that I really kind of just settle down, and I can play with RC cars, I can hang out with my family, hang out with my kids. I can do something for myself. I think that's pretty much the only time. I love playing computer video games. I'm really big into I mean, I guess I'm not really that big, but anytime I get a chance to just sit down with family to play multiplayer games,
Yeah.
especially around Christmas and Thanksgiving, that's kind of when I veg out and just do that, and it's so awesome. It really is awesome. And unfortunately, this time we didn't get to do that this year. I didn't get to hang out with family at all
Right.
because everything that's going on. But we got through it. I didn't think we were gonna get through it legitimately. I don't know how it was for you, but it just doesn't look good for us at all, because 2020 we were set to have the biggest year
Mm-hmm.
of all time for all of us, and I think it was the case for most people, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
of how car culture
Oh yeah.
was happening. Um, Once the everything shut down, we had nothing. Like, I look at my calendar and it went from commercial job, commercial job, commercial job, this, and whatever, racing here, to nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Luckily for us, it really turned around in the last half of the year. And also on top of that, we got a commercial printer from Canon. My friends at Canon are just so amazing, and they support us in every way on the camera side and also on the printing side. We got a commercial printer and we started selling prints. I've never taken a cent from the people that follow us until that point. And
Right.
it was so nice to be able to provide something that you can touch and feel for the fans. And we always try to make it personal. I made these. I don't know if you've seen these.
Oh
I
yeah.
gotta
Oh
I
yeah. I
gotta
see 'em.
send
Totally.
some to you.
Dude,
Um,
absolutely.
but
Bring.
it's
I
so
would love it.
funny. I made these because I just give them out to people. I don't sell them. I just give them out, and especially if you buy prints, I just give a couple in each package. And I also like to make these postcards. That's what this is. I
Yeah.
make these postcards and I sign each and every one of them, and I slip them into the prints. And I don't need to, because it seems like people are really appreciative of being able to at least support us, and also they get this art that they can look at every single day. But I print them all myself. I sign them all myself, and it's just a one way that one thing that honestly really saved us. We were able to get through this. We've sold 2,500 prints so far since we started, and that was right after the shutdown happened. It just blows my mind how supportive the fans are of. It basically allowed us to keep shooting Hoonigan Autofocus. It's the craziest thing, because
Well,
how much money comes from YouTube. How much YouTube revenue that it's nothing. There's no way you can.
well, that's the big misconception, right? Everybody's like, you've
Yeah.
got a channel, which means you're making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. You're like, dude, I made $87 last month. You know,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? People they
Yeah.
have no concept of what it takes. And I
Yeah.
think that, the work that you've done, again, the fact that people are hunting you down to get pieces of your art, that's that's pretty amazing. And I mean, and the fact that you do take personal time to not only send these out, but to sign these things for fans. I think there are so many people out there that simply won't do that. And I think, that just shows the appreciation that you have for them. And as we both know, that is a two-way street, right? If you don't engage with your fans, if you don't engage with your audience, they will kick you right to the curb at some point,
Oh
regardless of
yeah.
how great your stuff is.
Oh
So,
yeah.
and like you said, 2020 through us. I mean, I was supposed to be filming all through 2020, and we legally weren't allowed to do it. We just couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Now 2021, things are loosening up a little bit. We're starting to get out. We're starting to do our stuff, but this is not over yet. And I think people, they think all of a sudden, like, January 1st hit and it's like, all right, go back to business. We're getting there. Not there yet, but
Yeah.
we're moving in that direction.
Yeah, and what really brought me hope is the fact that car culture, from what we were able to see, is so essential. I
Hmm.
mean, in the grand scheme of things, realistically, it's not.
Sure.
But for our mental health and just for a reason to live, it is essential. And that's what's really kept us going. So many manufacturers, so many publications, and just people in the car culture community, they reached out to us and we were still able to work, especially the last half of the year. And then this year, it's still early, but I think we hit it pretty hard. We just been shooting as much as we can, safely, of course. But yeah, it's nice to be back. It really is.
Good. Well, Larry,
Yeah.
where can first off, where can everybody find you? Where can they find you if they want some of the most beautiful photographs in the world taken? Where can they
Mhm.
find you on social channels? How does everybody get in touch with Larry Chen?
Yeah, so I think the best way to follow what I'm doing day in, day out is my Instagram. Just search Larry Chen and it should pop up. That's definitely the best way to see what I'm shooting and kind of seeing what will come down the pipeline on Hoonigan Autofocus. And then, of course, YouTube, if you want to watch hours and hours of me just talking about my 240Z. It's just search Hoonigan Autofocus on YouTube, and it's just one of the mini channels from the Hoonigan Media Machine.
Hmm.
They have their main channel, they have project cars, they have all this other crazy stuff. They have Ken Block's channel. We're just such a small piece of the puzzle, but we're so lucky to be able to work with them and be a part of that network. And Hoonigan Autofocus is just us. We all do it in-house. The only thing that Hoonigan does is it just has this name, and we're so proud to have the name. Um, if you want free high resolution photos, definitely go to my website, larrychenphoto.com. I pretty much put most of my recent work and I think some of my best work on there. It's free for everybody to download, super high resolution. It's just whatever, personal use, of course, commercial use. I stated pretty
Yeah.
obviously that you have to contact me about that. But yeah, if you want to print them out, if you want to put them on your desktop, your phone wallpaper, if you want to just have them and save them, just feel free. If you want to support us on what we're doing on Hoonigan Autofocus, if you want to get a print, you could search Larry Chen Prints. You can go to my Etsy store. If you just go to Etsy, you just search Larry Chen and you'll find our store.
Perfect.
Yep.
Well, Larry, thank you so much for coming on the Hot Rod Barbecue. It's, like I said, been a fan from day one, and it's always fun to see the events that you're working on, the photographs that you're taking, because every time I see one, I turn back into that kind of 8-year-old kid that saw that Lamborghini rolling down the street again. So
Yeah.
thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. I just wanted to tell you one more story about King of the Hammers. I don't know if you saw, I posted this picture of this like a rat rod Mercedes.
Oh yeah, the Mercedes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah. So it's so funny
That's the
because
diesel Benz, right?
yeah, I shot that set on my cell phone. I saw him on the lake bed and I was like, this thing is just too cool. I had to take pictures of this thing. We did a full Hoonigan Autofocus episode. I did a full set with my DSLR, but I decided to take a quick just shoot. I decided to do a quick shoot with my cell phone and I published them. And from King of the Hammers, it was definitely my biggest set. But I look at the impressions, and it's 1.1 million impressions just from
Insanity.
a car that costs $800. And the fun thing is, I'm able to shoot these brand new cars, a lot of these cars that are code red that haven't even come out yet. I'm able to shoot these $1 million cars, $5-10 million cars. But then what excites me is this $800 car
That's
that was
awesome.
just built in just driving around King of the Hammers. And I took just a couple photos on my cell phone. I published them, and over 1 million people have seen them, which is just the craziest thing, and that just goes to show it's so much. A lot of it is just not about your gear. It's just about the subject matter, and it's about the story behind it.
Absolutely. Well,
Yeah.
Larry, once again, thank you. Yeah, I'm stoked to put this episode up. This is going to be so much fun. And I think that anybody who's a budding photographer, anybody who wants to get into car culture, to document it, to tell the stories, yeah, I think they're going to learn a little bit from this one. So thanks again, Larry.
And they can DM me. I'll do my best to answer. I try my best to answer as many questions as I can.
Perfect. Larry, we'll talk to you soon, and thanks again, buddy.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening, folks. And again, please subscribe to the Hot Rod BBQ podcast. If you're on Spotify, check us out there. Subscribe to it on iTunes. And if you are going to go to YouTube, make sure you go to the Hot Rod BBQ podcast and hit that subscribe button, and we'll come to you every week.